Welcome back. This is the second episode of my show, Repulsive TV. Thank you for tuning back in if this is the second time you've seen it. And if it's the first time, welcome. My name is Ralphie Repulsive. I'm the bass player / singer for a band called the Order of the Fly and another band called Erase, Negate, Delete, or End. The Order of the Fly is a long storied, historic horror punk band that's been around the block and done a bunch of weird stuff. Erase, Negate, Delete, or End is a sort of synthy, quasi-industrial punk band, and both ones sort of serve to fill a specific creative urge that I've had over the years. One of them is my sort of Nine Inch Nails Skinny Puppy worship. The other one is my sort of horror rock, Alice Cooper, Misfits, Kiss worship. So without further ado, tonight I'm going to give you a little bit my first installment of the secret history of the Order of the Fly and how we came to be and our misadventures throughout our totally, like, we've made every wrong decision along the way. So that makes for a terrible life, but a hilarious bit of memoir retelling. So I look forward to imparting some nuggets of wisdom, and you can view me as a cautionary tale of how not to succeed as a band. I'm joined tonight by my friends Tony and Kathy. Hello, say hi.
Hello.
You should be picked up on this. And James and Leanne. Hello.
What's up?
It's good to see you guys. James was kind enough to bring a couple of beers. These are all some really good friends that have also been fans of the band for quite some time. We did not have practice tonight. I was the only guy that made it. Everybody else had previous engagements, so I'm a little less sweaty, which is nice. And I also made the correct decision to put my contact lenses in before makeup, so I will be tearing up a lot less. I was not emotional last episode. I was feeling like two hot pokers were just jabbing in the eyes the whole time, which is why my eyes were bloodshot as hell, and I was crying and blinking every half second. And my good friend Justin Melinda was kind enough to point out that he could tell I had been drinking wine because I had wine teeth, which I just thought, I was hoping it was just the white makeup that turned my teeth yellow, but apparently it's old age and red wine, black coffee, and cigars. So that's another little health tip. Health tip number one: if you want to keep your choppers beautiful, don't smoke cigars, don't drink red wine, and don't drink black coffee all day, every day, forever. But before I get to my little tidbit about the Order of the Fly and how it began, I'm going to introduce a couple of records. I had a good record haul this week, so I want to talk about a few really good ones. I mentioned in the first episode how synthwave is sort of my new addiction musically. I absolutely love it. My faves in the genre right now are Carpenter Brute and Vampire Stepdad, who, if you are interested whatsoever at all in the genre, please look him up. He's kind of an outlier in the scene, but he's hilarious. His email list, if you are smart enough to make it onto his email list, is hilarious. He stays in character. His whole shtick is that he's basically wears Cosby sweaters, but he's a vampire. He looks like the dad from Fright Night. What was that guy's name? Do you remember? Jerry Dandridge?
Yeah.
So he looks like Jerry Dandridge. He wears the Cosby sweater, and but he's a vampire. So it's perfect, So we're all his Charlies. We're all his little wannabe stepkids or neighbor kids, and he stays in character. And every email that he writes you says, "Hey, kiddo." It's great. It's so excellent. He talks to you like you're his stepkid, and he's sad he hasn't been giving you enough attention lately, and it's awesome. So that's my first definite recommend. But another huge guy in the synthwave scene, who's almost I don't know. This new one is so well done and different and sort of genre busting that it doesn't even really feel like synthwave or retrowave. It's his own kind of genre. It's sort of half industrial. Well, this math isn't going to add up, so it can't be half and half and half. But it's going to be part industrial, part synthwave, part metal. It changes BPM. Like each song, it changes tempo. There's vocals. It's great. So it is the new Perterbator album. And it comes in this beautiful, glorious gatefold cover. which when I ordered it online, because I ordered it off Bandcamp, which is a great site to discover new synthwave, I thought it was a city, but when you look at it closer, it's a bunch like almost like an architectural drawing. It sort of has, it looks like a foundry or something from further away, but the closer you get, the more it's just sort of geometric shapes. All black and white, black vinyl. There's how many tracks on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks. Vanta Black has vocals. It's a fantastic song. It's like some seriously dark and disturbing lyrics. But this is a definite checkout. And another, just sort of slightly venturing out of the synthwave world but from one of the genre templates, one of the synthwave artists out there is the brilliant director John Carpenter and his soundtrack for Big Trouble in Little China, which I was hesitant to take out of the bag here because I don't want to lose my Obi band. But it's got great new cover art, finally released on vinyl. I used to sit and go on eBay for days at a time looking for a vinyl copy of this, which I don't even know if it ever even existed. But one of the greatest movies of the 80s, probably easily one of my top 3 favorite movies of all time. Jack Burton is who I've modeled my life after, even if he's a fictional version of an 80s John Wayne in a truck fighting Chinese demons in San Francisco. He's everything I hope to be when I grow up, even though I'm probably older than he actually is in the movie, so I wish I would have been like him when I was younger. I wish I would have been able to grow hair so I could grow a mullet. But it's a great double LP. Oops, I'm sorry. Dang it. This is the one thing I hate about modern frickin' gatefold double LPs is I can never get the records back in. It comes with, 2 LPs. It's just black, so I'm not going to take them out. But you get this great little insert, which is a flyer, like a little cheesy flyer for Egg Foo Young Tours. So it's got Egg Shen, his little one-eyed squinty face on there, leering at you. It's got all the classics, and the greatest thing ever is the theme song, the Big Trouble in Little China end credits theme song, where it's John Carpenter and Coupe de Ville's a fantastic music video that should be watched. That just looks like weird coked out 80s John Carpenter. Well, if John Carpenter ever hears it, I don't know if you're on coke or not, but the video makes you look that way. I'm not sure if you were or not, so I don't want to dime you out if you weren't, but it's a great video. It's like super 80s, super cheesy. The song is fucking awesome. I used to actually take the video cassette and take the RCA outs and put them into the back of my tape deck so I could record it. It's fantastic. This is much better now, so now I have the actual record, so I can jam out to that. And then my other hot selections for the week that I throw on the turntable are, I recently watched a documentary on Wendy O. Williams, and it re-sparked my interest and how amazing of a person she was, and like what a freaking definite one of those people that's like the candle burning at both ends, burning twice as bright but half as long. And I have recently picked up 3 of them. Oops, I forgot one, but I'll go back to it. So, first off, my all-time favorite Ramones album is Animal Boy, which most people, I don't think it's their favorite. I kind of like the weirdo albums for bands that I love. Just how, like last week, I was talking about how much I love Dada by Alice Cooper. Animal Boy is one of those albums that gets overlooked a lot. People, I don't think, liked it at the time because of its super 80s production. It had synthesizers, which didn't really fit with the Ramones. It was right at the dawn of hardcore, so hardcore was changing the sound of punk, and they were still kind of catching up and weren't sure if they were new wave or what. It's almost like a new wave album, but it's produced by Jean Beauvoir, I believe is how you would pronounce it, who was the bass player and synthesizer player for Wendy O and the Plasmatics on a couple of records. So it has almost the same kind of sound, but holy smokes, the drum recordings on these albums are probably the coolest drums I've ever heard in my life. And in the documentary, they discuss how they recorded them in like an airplane hangar, And coming to it from like I worked in a recording studio, like an indie recording studio, for a few years. Then I sort of took that knowledge and started my own little thing, just kind of for my own bands. And having mic'd up a bunch of drum kits and stuff, I've always done close mic'd kits to get the clean like separation to be able to mix it right. But because I never have a good sound, like I never have that perfectly tuned, amazing kit. But this is the 80s, you know, where that kit existed and was sitting in the middle of an airplane hangar. So when they would record those drums, it wasn't close mic'd at all. Those mics sound like they're like 15 feet away, so it's nothing but reverb. But you have this perfectly tuned, amazing drum kit. So just even if you're like halfway interested in the way drums sound on albums, you need to pick these albums up. But for instance, I first got Beyond the Valley, which is you know, a classic for the Plasmatics, and then I also got Metal Priestess, another one, fantastic as well. But my favorite of the bunch is just Wendy O. Williams. First, it was kind of marketed as a solo album because Capitol had dropped them from the label, so they were sort of in between labels, but they were on the rise as far as popularity. People were they were like selling out everywhere. They were doing a tour with Kiss. But for whatever reason, Capitol didn't drop them, so they were in between, so they couldn't use the Plasmatic names on the album. So Gene Simmons from Kiss approached Wendy to produce their album, and suggested, and I don't know if he suggested or who did, but they decided to go with just her name on the album, even though it is a Plasmatics album. So you still have Michael Ray playing guitar. You've got who else is on this? Well, this is the cool thing. You got the mainstays of the Plasmatics are Wes Beach, the guitar player, rhythm guitar player and lead, and Wendy. And then you also have Michael Ray, who was sort of a discovery by Gene Simmons when they were auditioning new guitar players after Ace left. Well, all of Kiss plays on this, even Ace Frehley, who had left Kiss. They even use an outtake track, which is the song Legends Never Die, but it was originally a demo off of Creatures of the Night that was The Legend Dies or something like that, or When the Legends Die. They took the outtake, so you've got Eric Carr on drums on that one. You've got Paul Stanley playing guitar on that one. Gene Simmons plays bass on all of them under a pseudonym, Reginald Van Helsing, which is awesome, and then which is so great. And he produced it, and the production is so freaking good. And in the documentary, they discussed too how this album, Kiss fans were saying this is like the best Kiss album that's come out in the past like 10 years, and it really is. If anybody is a fan of that kind of music and that big bombastic 80s hard rock / heavy metal / proto punk, or I guess not proto, this is like mid punk, but sound. This album is freaking epic. And if you download only like one song off of here, you have to download the song that's called Opus in C minor 7, which is fantastic. Her voice sounds great. It's very melodic. It's just like the drums are just huge sounding, awesome, very good. And you know, she sadly, left this world too early and too young for no reason, for suicide, which I hope she found peace in the end. But it's just such a sad end to like what a great, interesting like person she was. And then my final record is one that I bought a little more a few months ago, but when I bought it when I was out of the country, so I didn't have a chance to listen to it until I got home. So it's been sitting there waiting for me. But I bought it's another one of the other. This would be in my top 5 synthwave artists right now is Truise. I believe he's from New Jersey, and it's like, first off, his name is great. Truise is like a brilliant name for a synthwave band. You just switch the first letters of Tom Cruise, so it immediately has the 80s vibe. But this album, Iteration, is absolutely fantastic, and I must have listened to this when I bought the vinyl. I also downloaded it so I could listen to it on my iPod while I would go to sleep, and so I was having a hard time sleeping, and this was my like sleep album. So I would always wake up every night at like 3 in the morning for some inexplicable reason, but I'd have my headphones in, so I'd wake up, and every time I listen to this record now, I just feel like this weird 3 a.m. kind of foggy vibe. And the synths on it, he does a lot of moving them in and out of tune. There's a lot of like waving out with the pitch, so it has this kind of weird drunk feel, almost like the tape is kind of like, if it had been recorded analog, somebody was sort of like putting their finger down on the reels and slowing and speeding up the tape by accident. So that's another must buy if you're into synthwave or whatever, retrowave, whatever the genre changes names so often I don't even really know. Outrun's another term for it. I'm not hip enough to really know which is correct or cool. I'm a new guy to the fandom of it, so I'm still calling it synthwave because I like both new wave and I like synths and I like saying synthwave. So that's my little tidbit for selections of records that I suggest everybody go out and listen to. None of those are really necessarily huge influences on me. Wendy O and the Plasmatics are only by proxy because she was such a massive shock rocker. Kiss was a huge influence on me. Gwar was a huge influence on me, and she was more similar in those two to Gwar, in that it was an art. I was performance art as well as music. And it's just inspiring to like see her like story. She's just an interesting person, and she and Rod Swanson, I believe it is. I'm such like I sound like a poser because I'm new to like memorizing the names of them, but Rod Swenson, not to be confused with Ron Swanson. He was sort of the conceptual artist behind it. So a lot of the exploding cars, I mean, she would literally explode cars on stage. You could never do that today. I mean, Rammstein can't even blow fire. She was blowing up freaking, Cadillacs on stage.
I have all the bootlegs of those TV performances where she did the
Oh, it's so awesome. I love it. So, okay, if people that didn't hear it, this is my friend Tony, who is the Matt Pinfield of San Bernardino. He is our musicologist. Google is less reliable than Tony. If you have any questions, direct them towards Tony. He will absolutely give you the absolute correct answer in so much detail that Wikipedia couldn't even hope to compete. I love it. We have great music conversations. So yeah, we need to sit down and have a chat and just like discuss great albums because we both have shared interests. Dang it, there's something else I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, so my first introduction to Wendy O. Williams was as a young lad. I lived in an apartment complex in Milwaukee, and both my parents worked, so there was like one lady in the apartment complex that would sort of do like a de facto daycare, and it was really just like the kids from the building would go to her house, and she had this really scary 13-year-old metalhead son that terrified me. I was like 6, and this kid scared the shit out of me. He had a big Kiss poster on his wall of Gene Simmons and would tell me that like this is a good beginning because this will segue into how the Order of the Fly started. So little baby Ralph, he loved his comic books, he liked superheroes, and because I like superheroes, I loved, as a child that was born in the 70s, I loved the Mego world's greatest superheroes action figures, which are the best toys that have ever been created of all time. They're like little 9-inch tall dolls of superheroes. They had the rights to both DC and Marvel, so it was like a huge selection of guys, and they had actual cloth clothes. You could pose them a million different ways. Greatest things ever, and I loved those. But Mego also had the rights to do Kiss action figures. So on TV, you would see commercials for Kiss action figures made by the same company. So to me, they looked like superheroes. I didn't even really know anything about rock and roll because my parents weren't big into like listening to music in the apartment. So I just thought they looked cool. They looked scary. And then this kid, who I can't remember his name, this 13-year-old thug, this little badass in his probably cut off sleeved jean jacket, literally smoking cigarettes at 13 and showing us how to light up a cigarette in his apartment. And made another kid eat dog poop, Jeremy. Poor little Jeremy. I don't know whatever happened to him, but man, he had a bad future because he started out with a 13-year-old bully like making him eat dog poop. And I'm traumatized by that. I remember seeing this white dog poop it was like that scene in frickin' Step Brothers where it was the exact same shade and everything. That same white petrified 2 summers old dog poop. It lived through the winter of Milwaukee winter and then thawed out and was just sitting there and just touched his lips. They kept trying to convince him it was chocolate, and I knew it wasn't chocolate. And so did Jeremy, but Jeremy took a bite. Poor little guy. Jeremy's probably like had PTSD his whole life from that. I almost do, from that traumatic experience. The 2 other experiences that gave me trauma were watching in some daytime soap thing. Wendy O.W. was on. I remember seeing her because it was the first time I ever saw fake boobs. I don't know if she had fake boobs, but I think they were fake boobs. Just being like, I couldn't figure out why her boobs looked like they did. They were so spherical. As a little kid, 6 years old, I just remember thinking her boobs looked weird because they just. And then she chainsawed something, and I mean, my memory, of course, being 6, who knows how accurate this is, but I remember her having like some kind of like rhino horn thing. Unless I'm mixing movies and stuff. Anyways. So that was my first introduction to Wendy O.W. Also, at that same daycare, we watched Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park on videotape. Terrified me as well, and that was my introduction to Kiss. And I still remember, I didn't even know any of their music, but I could remember the scene where they're looking at the talisman, and that's where they got their secret powers. In my brain, in my 6-year-old memory, it's so much better than it actually looked. But I was like, and the battle with on the freaking roller coaster with those werewolf-looking things. Holy smokes, that was like nightmare-inducing for me. Years later, that's why I like Kiss, because it was, it terrified me as a 6-year-old, and therefore, that's how I liked music. Interestingly enough, here we go. This is just I'm rambling. Same reason why I like Alice Cooper was because I saw Alice Cooper on The Muppet Show, which was another show that was out in the 70s, and I saw it. And this I saw when I was in Chicago. We moved from Milwaukee to Chicago, and in Chicago, in LA, you had Elvira, that was like the announcer for horror movies. But as a kid in Chicago, we had a guy named Son of Svengoolie, who I guess had a dad named Svengoolie that was the precursor. But Son of Svengoolie in the 70s and 80s, so this would have been like early 80s. It would be like, you'd watch your Saturday morning cartoons, then Son of Svengoolie would come on, and you'd watch a horror movie, like Gamera versus whatever, and or Frankenstein versus Wolfman, the cheesy old ones. But he'd do these hilarious little bits in between each one, and he looked to me like Alice Cooper. So when I saw Alice Cooper on The Muppet Show, I thought it was Son of Svengoolie and thought they were the same guy until I figured out the difference, and that began my lifelong infatuation with Alice. More information than anybody wanted to know about why. Oh, that's good, though. That's what segues me into. So that's the ultimate. That's like the prequels of the Star Wars epic. That's my prequels. That's my little baby pod racer version of Ralph Anakin Skywalker. That's how he first discovered rock and roll, was being terrorized by a weird babysitter kid. The son of the babysitter. Oh, and then I watched Salem's Lot too. That also scared. Oh my God, that scared the hell out of me. That stupid TV movie, which is so bad, but holy crap! The scene in the hospital, I can still remember it, where the guy's making a freaking tongue depressor cross to kill the freaking Nosferatu guy. Oof, it's nothing to show a 6-year-old in the 70s at all. So. That's how 6-year-old Ralph became infatuated with colorful rock and roll superheroes, which leads me to high school Ralph. I have to do a little editing here. So, little baby Ralph, little 6-year-old Ralph, got interested in rock and roll by way of the theatrical side of music. I loved Kiss because I didn't even know what their music sounded like, but saw them and knew that is freaking awesome. And I saw Alice Cooper and didn't know his music either, but I saw him and knew that is freaking awesome. But I lived in, my parents, to their credit, tried to raise me wholesome without any of these terrible influences. But unfortunately, they didn't realize how just utterly susceptible I am to reverse psychology. So their attempts at keeping this kind of stuff away from me just made it seem so much cooler. And so finally, when I did have a record player, which my first record player was a little Fisher-Price brown plastic thing, I got Welcome to My Nightmare on vinyl, which I still have the actual version. Old school, right? Great album. Then I actually started in like learning the music and understanding how much I liked the music. So when I was in high school, so we moved around a little bit more, and I moved to Fairfax, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., a kind of upscale suburb. Nice, like perfect, like ideal childhood living, you know, like just a generally like a good kind of, now it's like, it's grown up a lot since I used to live there, but it used to feel like kind of a small town. You could ride bikes everywhere. We never like worried about getting kidnapped or shot or anything, you know. I would ride my bike to the Safeway to buy comic books with my lunch money that I didn't spend on lunch, so I would just ride, and comics were 75 cents, so you could get a comic and a Coke at the 7-Eleven and or the Safeway. So when I was in high school, I wanted a guitar so bad. It's like the only thing I wanted. Probably around 15, 16, and I had a good friend named Doug Jacobson. And Doug Jacobson and Ernesto Carcamo and I, two of my really good buddies, this would have been like late 80s, mid 80s. There wasn't anything to do as a kid on the weekends other than rent videos. We would ride our bikes to the video place, which was like a mom and pop before Blockbuster was even like a thing, and you could still have like, it was still divided into like Betamax section and VHS section, so you had to go to whichever side of the building based on whatever format your household had. My dad was a baller, so we had Betamax. It was pretty sweet. Better video quality, but immediately died out because, you know, nobody else had one. And I don't know why we had that. I don't know. But we eventually had to switch over to VHS as well. So anyways, we would go, and we would all usually stay the night we'd either stay out late and like hang out at either Doug's house or Ernie's house. And we would go, and Doug had a guitar. So Doug had this like Ibanez, the same one that Dax has. Explorer, I believe, is the model, you know, and so it's like that early, super fancy, looks like a total heavy metal guitar. I was like so infatuated. So I didn't have a guitar of my own, but I wanted to learn really bad. Doug was taking lessons, so Doug would take lessons, then he'd come back and give me his lesson that he got, and that's how he taught me. So he would learn like Love Gun by Kiss on guitar, and I would just sit and like try to work on a power chord and like da 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 da, and just do that forever to try to learn. But we would always go to the video store and rent music videos. There would be a section just for music videos, and it would be like, it would be everything from like Kiss Animalize or you know, some like concert video of the Eagles or something, to like Blood Roses or Trick or Treat, or any movie that had any sort of like rock and roll leanings. It was the perfect selection. So we would just go movie by movie, and we'd pick out, I think the limit was like 3 videos you could rent. So we would rent 3 rock and roll like movies. So it would be like Iron Maiden live, freaking Guar in Antarctica, and then like or what is it? What was that one? It was this from the Scumdogs era. What was it? Live from Antarctica, I think is what it was. It was actually the 930 Club in DC, like 2 blocks away. But you know, it was Antarctica in the video. And then like a movie like Trick or Treat or something. It was great. And so those movies, I like that, like got me into stuff like heavy metal. And then at the same time, I had another friend in high school who was a skater kid who was like a million times cooler than me, but we were in the TV class, the AV TV class together. So we'd walk around school and like, you know, fix your videotapes when it would get eaten up by the antiquated old school like frickin' antediluvian VHS things that had like actual manual levers that would lift the top up and stuff like that. And they would devour videotapes. So, but he would make me tapes of punk. So at the same time I was like getting into metal, like, you know, Motley Crue and shit. I was also getting into tapes that this guy would make, Jason would make, of like Black Flag, and specifically Black Flag was like my favorite of them, but also the Misfits, also Fugazi, stuff like that. The Dayglow Abortions, that was a big one. Or some of the other ones that I was like super obsessed with. Those are the biggies. But so way before I moved to California, something says something on the screen. God damn it, probably just died on me. Movie recording is stopped automatically. That's great. Hopefully that didn't happen.
Probably just popped up.
Did it?
You had to turn towards you, so
I don't know. I wasn't looking.
you want me to turn it towards me so I can see if anything pops up?
Nah, I'll just wing it. I'm probably already going too long anyways. Maybe that's why. Maybe it was just too much. Oh, Darn it. Well, hopefully that just popped up, but I think I was talking about music videos and renting them, but something popped up on the screen, so I had to quick hit pause and edit. But to get to the cut to the chase for anybody that's halfway interested on how the Order of the Fly started. So high school Ralph would rent these with his two hoodlum friends, would rent these like heavy metal movies, and I got super into, because we were watching them on videos. This is pre-internet, pre-YouTube. These things were like treasures to find. So if you found something like Alice Cooper, The Nightmare Returns, which is one of the greatest like 80s like heavy metal rock and roll live videos with tons and tons of theatrics from like right after Constrictor came out, so it's probably like 87. It's an amazing video, and stuff like that and Guar just like got me into, I was dying to do a theatrical band. However, I had zero ability to do this because I didn't even have a guitar. Didn't have a bass, didn't have anything. I wanted to play bass more than I wanted to play guitar, but my dad, who used to play guitar, was smart and told me, you're not allowed to play bass until you learn how to play guitar, because if you play one, you can play the other, which is fairly accurate. Doesn't necessarily work the other direction. So I'm glad I learned how to play guitar first, because it's served me well, and now I still play guitar, but horribly, but I still play it. But anywho, so the roots of the Order of the Fly were 16-year-old Ralph really badly wanting to make a theatrical band. I did have a bunch of friends that we did have a band. It was a great band called the Empty Bottles in high school, but I was constantly outvoted with, we were mostly covers obviously, but I was always outvoted. We had, you know, these guys were into Bob Dylan and John Mellencamp and Cream, and I was into, you know, like trying to get them to convince them to play like Alice Cooper and Kiss, and they weren't having it. So I had to have that stored in the back of my mind. But Doug, my buddy who was teaching me how to play guitar, he and I were going to start a band. You know, we wanted to. Never knew a drummer, never knew anybody else that would be down to do it. But we would sit and design makeup. That was the thing. Like, I wanted to be like Kiss or Guar. I wanted to be theatrical. So I would sit, instead of taking notes in geometry, which probably would have served me better in life, instead, I would, in my notebook, design like total, like, you know, full-on costumes. Like, I wanted the trench coat that Alice Cooper had in The Nightmare Returns. So I draw that, this ratty trench coat. If you haven't seen it, oh my God, so awesome. I still want that damn trench coat. I would look retarded in it, but I want it bad. It's awesome. It's like this like post-apocalyptic black leather ratted down trench coat. And so I would do that and design makeup and stuff. And I had to sort of keep this idea in the back of my head, never really thinking it would get off the ground ever. But that was my dream. So this episode, I'm just going to tell you like what the little nascent, little nugget, little inchoate idea of the Order of the Fly and how it would like blossom into like what it ended up turning into. But my dream was, from young age, to be a theatrical rock and roll guy. And that's it. So I'm going to stop it there and review this video and see if I have to retake the entire thing because it stopped halfway. But hope you enjoyed it, and I want to thank all my friends for showing up tonight, and I hopefully will you can clap. Please do. Please clap. As Jeb Bush would say, please applause. Please clap. Good old low energy Jeb. I miss him. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come back for the next one. I'm going to put one up a week, and soon, once we can get the guys in a room, which is much harder than you would think. It is very, very, very hard. We're all like different polarized magnets, and apparently you can only have, you know, out of a 5-person band, 3 to 4 in a room at once. I think that if all 5 of us will actually be in the room, the world might explode. So we're taking it little bit by bit. We'll try. Maybe we'll get everybody in the room, but I don't know. Who knows if it's physically possible. But my goal is to go through the eras of the Order of the Fly and give you a little bit of history and how we came about, and continue to discuss awesome records and bands that inspired us along the way, and give you the secret history of the Order of the Fly and the San Bernardino horror punk era of between, say, 2000 and 2004. It's good times. Good times. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you had a great night, and I'll talk to you soon.